Hello, my dear listeners. I'm Anna, and tonight I invite you to drift alongside me into the crystalline embrace of one of Earth's most enchanting sanctuaries. Bora Bora, nestled within the sapphire heart of French Polynesia, has whispered to my soul through countless dreamscapes, where the silk-soft caress of trade winds carries the perfume of vanilla orchids across lagoons that shimmer like liquid turquoise. I've always been drawn to places where the boundary between heaven and water dissolves, where the gentle percussion of wavelets against coral creates nature's most soothing lullaby. Tonight, we'll explore this Pacific jewel together, letting its tranquil magic wash over us like warm honey. As we begin this peaceful voyage, I wonder, can you imagine what it might feel like to float weightlessly between sky and sea, where every breath carries the essence of tropical blossoms? The first rays of dawn are painting themselves across the infinite canvas above us, transforming the velvet darkness into the softest pearl gray luminescence. Here in Bora Bora, morning arrives not with urgency, but with the gentlest whisper, as if the sun itself understands the sacred nature of this place. The air holds that perfect temperature where your skin can barely distinguish between your body and the world around you, neither warm nor cool, but perfectly balanced, like being cradled in the most delicate silk cocoon. Before us stretches a lagoon so pristine it seems to hold captured starlight within its depths. The water shifts through countless shades of blue and green, from the palest mint, where it laps against ivory sand beaches, deepening through aquamarine, then sapphire, until it becomes the rich indigo of the open Pacific beyond the coral reef. Each ripple catches the growing light and throws it back in gentle sparkles, creating a living tapestry that moves and breathes with hypnotic rhythm. The scent of frangipani drifts on the morning breeze, sweet and creamy, mingling with the clean, salt-tinged freshness of the ocean. Somewhere nearby, gardenia blossoms release their intoxicating perfume, while the green fragrance of palm fronds adds an earthy undertone to this aromatic symphony. The air itself tastes of moisture and tropical abundance, each breath filling your lungs with the essence of paradise. Our feet sink slightly into sand so fine it feels like powdered silk between our toes. Each grain has been polished smooth by centuries of gentle waves, creating a surface that yields perfectly beneath our weight. The beach stretches in graceful curves around the lagoon's edge, punctuated by the elegant shadows of coconut palms, whose fronds rustle with the softest whisper, a sound like distant rain on leaves, creating nature's most peaceful percussion. As we move closer to the water's edge, small wavelets reach toward us with barely audible sighs, each one carrying tiny fragments of coral and shell that tinkle together like wind chimes flight of ocean treasures. The sound is so delicate, it's almost felt rather than heard. A gentle vibration that seems to resonate in your very bones with its rhythmic constancy. The lagoon's surface reflects not just the sky, but the towering volcanic peak of Mount Otmanyu, which rises from the island's heart like an ancient cathedral spire. Its slopes are draped in the most luxurious emerald velvet, dense tropical vegetation that cascades down rocky faces in waterfalls of green. Morning mist clings to the mountain's shoulders like gossamer scarves, slowly dissolving as the sun climbs higher, revealing glimpses of hidden valleys where wild hibiscus blooms splash scarlet and gold against the verdant backdrop. Here where land meets sea, the boundary blurs in the most enchanting way. Shallow water extends far from shore, so clear you can see every detail of the coral garden beneath, brain coral like sculptured pillows, sea fans swaying in underwater breezes, schools of tiny fish that move as one shimmering entity, their scales catching fragments of sunlight and scattering them like living confetti. The humidity wraps around us like a warm, gentle embrace, causing the slightest dewiness to gather on our skin, not uncomfortable, but refreshing, like the memory of a cooling mist. Palm fronds above create shifting patterns of shade and golden light, while the constant, almost subliminal sound of water moving over coral provides a backdrop more soothing than any composed melody. As we wade into the lagoon's embrace, the water feels neither shocking nor tepid, but precisely the temperature of a perfect bath. It caresses our ankles, then our calves, with the softest touch silky, almost weightless, supporting us effortlessly. Beneath our feet, fine sand gives way occasionally to smooth pieces of coral, worn soft by endless tides, creating texture without discomfort. The light continues its slow transformation, shifting from pearl to pale gold, casting everything in an increasingly warm glow that seems to emanate from within the water itself. Schools of angelfish drift by like living rainbows, their movements unhurried and graceful, while somewhere in the distance comes the haunting call of a tropic bird, pure and clear as crystal bells across the morning stillness. Our journey into this Pacific paradise has only just begun, and already we can feel the deep tranquility of Bora Bora beginning to settle into our very souls. The deeper we venture into the lagoon's crystalline sanctuary, the more we discover its hidden choreography of life. Beneath our floating forms, rays glide with balletic precision across sandy clearings, their movements creating subtle currents that massage our bodies with invisible fingers. The sensation is extraordinary, as though the ocean itself is breathing around us. Its gentle inhalations and exhalations rocking us in an ancient rhythm that predates human memory. A family of blacktip reef sharks passes beneath us like living shadows, their forms sleek and purposeful, yet utterly peaceful in their domain. There's something profoundly calming about witnessing these graceful predators in their natural serenity, reminding us that even the ocean's most feared creatures move with meditation-like tranquility in these protected waters. Their presence adds a thrilling undercurrent of wildness to our dreamlike float. The morning sun has found its stride now, sending shafts of golden light diving deep into the lagoon's clarity. These luminous columns dance and sway with each gentle swell, creating an underwater aurora that plays across the coral gardens below. Parrotfish graze contentedly on coral polyps, their constant munching producing a subtle crackling sound that bubbles up through the water column, nature's version of a crackling hearth. Oddly comforting in its persistence, drifting further from shore, we encounter a phenomenon unique to these tropical waters. The matu, tiny coral islets that emerge from the lagoon like scattered emeralds. These miniature islands wear crowns of pandanus trees and wild purslane, their roots drinking directly from the salt water that surrounds them. Birds nest here in complete solitude, red-footed boobies and frigate birds, whose wings span impossible distances, yet who move with surprising delicacy as they tend their young in swaying branches. The trade winds begin to strengthen as morning progresses, carrying new fragrances across our floating sanctuary. Ylang-ylang blossoms contribute their narcotic sweetness to the aromatic bouquet, while the green scent of sea lettuce and other marine algae adds a briny complexity that speaks of the ocean's fertile abundance. These changing perfumes tell the story of an ecosystem in perfect balance, where every element contributes to an olfactory symphony of extraordinary richness. Our bodies have found complete equilibrium now, floating effortlessly between surface tension and gentle submersion. The salt content here provides perfect buoyancy, requiring no effort to maintain our peaceful suspension. Occasionally, schools of butterfly fish approach with curious boldness, their yellow and black stripes creating living kaleidoscope patterns that shift and reform around us. Their tiny fins create microcurrents that tickle our skin with feather-light touches. Above us, the sky continues its slow metamorphosis from morning pastels to deeper tropical blue. Wispy cirrus clouds stretch across the dome like brushstrokes on cerulean canvas, moving so gradually their progress becomes hypnotic. The sun's reflection on the water creates a pathway of dancing diamonds that leads toward the horizon, where sky and sea merge in a haze of silver blue infinity. The coral formations beneath us tell stories written in living stone. Here, staghorn coral reaches upward like crystalline antlers, while there, plate coral spreads in perfect circles like underwater lily pads. Sea cucumbers move with glacial slowness across sandy patches, their deliberate progress somehow deeply satisfying to observe. Everything here operates on geological time, where patience becomes a virtue and hurry dissolves into irrelevance. As we drift with the lagoon's subtle currents, the sensation of movement becomes almost subliminal. We're traveling without effort, carried by forces older than continents, feeling ourselves become part of the ocean's vast circulation. This passive journey creates a profound sense of surrender. We need only trust the water to guide us through this aquatic meditation. Polynesian stories seem to echo in the water's gentle murmurings, tales of voyagers who navigated by star patterns reflected in just such pristine lagoons. The cultural weight of this place settles around us like an ancestral blessing, connecting us to centuries of islanders who found spiritual sustenance in these same turquoise depths. Their reverence for the ocean's power permeates every molecule of water that cradles us. Small waves generated by distant swells begin reaching us, their energy softened by the protective coral reef into the gentlest undulations. Each swell lifts us slightly, then settles us back into the warm embrace with rhythmic precision. This natural massage continues endlessly, working tension from muscles we didn't realize were holding stress, dissolving knots of worry in the most organic therapy imaginable. The underwater landscape continues revealing new wonders as we drift. Gardens of soft coral sway like underwater meadows, their polyps extended to filter microscopic nutrients from the crystal clear water. Cleaner wrasse establish their stations at coral outcroppings, performing their vital services for larger fish in nature's most organized spa system. Watching these symbiotic relationships unfold creates a deep sense of interconnectedness, reminding us that we too are part of this vast web of oceanic life. Time loses all meaning in this floating reverie. Minutes might be hours, hours might be heartbeats. The distinction becomes beautifully irrelevant as we surrender completely to Bora Bora's liquid embrace, letting its primal tranquility wash through our consciousness like warm honey through crystal. Gradually, the lagoon's geography begins to shift around us, revealing channels where deeper azure currents flow like underwater rivers. These liquid highways carry cooler temperatures from the ocean's depths, creating delicious contrasts against our sun-warmed skin. Floating across these thermal boundaries feels like drifting through invisible curtains, each transition marked by subtle changes in density and temperature that our bodies register with exquisite sensitivity. jellyfish appear in the distance, their translucent bells pulsing with ethereal grace through the sun-dappled water. Moon jellies, nearly invisible except for their faint opalescent shimmer, move with dreamlike slowness, their tentacles trailing behind them like gossamer ribbons. Their presence adds an otherworldly quality to our aquatic meditation. These ancient creatures, having perfected the art of effortless movement through liquid space millions of years before humans first gazed upon the ocean, the subtle minerality of the seawater becomes more apparent as we breathe deeply. Tiny droplets of spray carrying trace elements from volcanic rock and coral calcium. Our lips taste faintly of magnesium and salt, while our nostrils detect the almost metallic purity of water that has been filtered through countless layers of living reef. This liquid has journeyed through submarine caverns and coral tunnels before reaching us, arriving enriched with the essence of deep-sea minerals. Polynesian legends speak of these waters as pathways between worlds, and floating here in perfect stillness, such mystical connections feel tangibly possible. The boundary between our physical forms and the encompassing water grows increasingly indistinct. We exist as consciousness suspended in crystalline medium, our awareness expanding beyond the limitations of individual bodies to merge with something infinitely larger and more ancient. Along the lagoon's edges, mangrove shoots emerge from shallow flats, their prop roots creating intricate architectural patterns both above and below the waterline. These nursery areas teem with juvenile fish, baby parrotfish, no larger than coins, miniature angelfish with colors more vivid than their adult counterparts, and translucent gobies that seem constructed entirely of living glass. Their playful energy creates subtle vibrations in the water, tiny percussion, notes that our floating bodies absorb rather than hear. The texture of the water itself continues evolving as we drift into areas where submarine springs add fresh water to the saline mix. These invisible tributaries create pockets of decreased salinity that feel silkier against our skin, almost viscous in their caressing quality. Local Polynesian wisdom recognizes these spots as sacred bathing areas where island royalty once came for ceremonial purification, and their reverent energy seems to linger in the molecular structure of the water itself. Overhead, frigate birds begin their afternoon thermal soaring, their magnificent wingspans catching rising columns of warm air with aeronautical precision. Their shadows pass over us intermittently, creating brief moments of cooler temperature that feel like gentle blessings from the sky. These master aviators rarely flap their wings, instead reading invisible air currents with the same intuitive navigation we're experiencing in the water below. The coral formations develop increasing complexity as we drift toward the outer reef areas. Brain coral formations create underwater mazes where smaller fish find shelter. Their constant movement generating microcurrents that massage our submerged limbs with targeted precision. Sea fans orient themselves perpendicular to prevailing currents, creating living walls of filtered sensation as we float past their swaying fronds. Bioluminescent plankton begin appearing as the sun reaches its zenith, though their light remains largely invisible in the bright daylight. However, our movement through the water occasionally triggers faint sparkles, microscopic fireworks that hint at the spectacular light. Show these same organisms will create, after darkness falls, the knowledge that we're swimming through a galaxy of potential starlight adds another layer of magic to our already enchanted suspension. The acoustic environment continues its subtle evolution as we drift further from shore. The sound of waves against distant coral heads creates a deeper bass note than the gentle lapping we heard at the beach. This oceanic percussion penetrates our bones through the water's conductive properties, creating sympathetic vibrations in our ribcages that match the planet's most fundamental rhythms. Our hearts begin synchronizing with this primal beat, aligning our internal timing with forces that have persisted since the ocean first formed. Schools of needlefish occasionally break the surface around us, their sleek forms creating brief silver arcs through the air before disappearing back into liquid space with barely a splash. These moments of kinetic beauty punctuate our static floating with reminders of the dynamic energy that surrounds our peaceful suspension. Their movements create expanding rings of surface tension that eventually reach us as the gentlest of caresses. The afternoon light begins taking on golden qualities that transform the underwater landscape into something even more magical. Coral polyps start extending their feeding tentacles in preparation for evening plankton blooms, creating texture variations we can feel as we drift past. The reef ecosystem's circadian rhythms become palpable through these subtle changes in surface sensation and water movement patterns. Volcanic sand deposits create darker patches on the lagoon floor where black pearls once formed in oyster beds. These areas absorb solar energy differently, radiating gentle warmth upward through the water column in invisible thermals that our floating bodies detect as patches of increased comfort. The sensation resembles floating over underwater heating elements, powered entirely by geological processes and solar energy. Sea grass meadows begin appearing in sandy areas between coral formations, their ribbon-like leaves creating underwater prairies that sway with hypnotic synchronization. Small seahorses cling to these marine plants with prehensile tails, their presence so perfectly camouflaged that spotting one feels like discovering hidden treasure. Their gentle movements through the swaying grass create visual rhythms that induce deeper states of relaxation in our floating consciousness. As afternoon progresses toward evening, the lagoon's thermal properties create increasingly complex temperature gradients that our bodies read like topographical maps written in warmth and coolness. We float through these invisible landscapes of sensation, each thermal boundary marking transitions between different water masses that have traveled impossible distances to converge in this single moment of perfect tranquility. Our journey through Bora Bora's liquid sanctuary continues deepening, each moment revealing new layers of sensory richness while drawing us further into the profound peace that only comes from complete surrender to nature's most elemental embrace. The lagoon begins revealing its most intimate secrets as we surrender deeper into its embrace. Ancient lava tubes create underwater caverns where bioluminescent algae cling to volcanic rock, their faint phosphorescent glow creating constellations beneath the surface. Our bodies drift over these submerged galleries, feeling the subtle temperature variations where cooler cave air meets sun-warmed water, creating pockets of sensation that shift across our skin like invisible silk scarves. Microorganisms in the water column begin their daily vertical migration, though this phenomenon occurs beyond our direct perception. Instead, we experience it as subtle changes in water density, tiny variations in buoyancy that make certain areas feel more supportive than others. Our bodies instinctively seek these zones of enhanced flotation, drifting unconsciously toward regions where millions of microscopic creatures create natural lift beneath us. The volcanic bedrock far below radiates geological warmth accumulated over millennia, its energy rising through countless layers of sand and coral debris to reach our suspended forms as the faintest thermal caress. This deep earth heating creates convection patterns that manifest as almost imperceptible water movements against our backs and shoulders, like the planet itself gently breathing beneath us. Coconut palms on distant shores begin releasing their pollen into afternoon breezes. These golden particles eventually settling on the lagoon's surface to create microscopic carpets that catch light in extraordinary ways. Where these natural dusts accumulate, the water develops an oily smoothness that feels like floating through liquid satin, each movement creating rainbow sheens that spiral away from our bodies in hypnotic patterns. Barrier reef formations create natural amphitheaters where whale songs from passing humpbacks become amplified and focused. Though the whales remain far offshore, their haunting melodies reach us through underwater acoustics, their deep frequencies penetrating our bodies through bone conduction rather than hearing. These subsonic vibrations create feelings of profound connection to oceanic consciousness, stretching across thousands of miles. Tidal pools on coral platforms begin their daily transformation as water levels fluctuate imperceptibly. Sea anemones respond to these minute pressure changes by adjusting their tentacle positions, creating different current patterns that we feel as varying intensities of water movement against our floating limbs. The reef breathes through these creatures, exhaling different rhythms as afternoon progresses toward twilight. Phosphate deposits from centuries of seabird guano create nutrient upwellings that support invisible blooms of microscopic life. These regions feel distinctly different against our skin, the water taking on qualities reminiscent of mineral springs, with trace elements that seem to absorb directly through our pores. The sensation resembles floating through liquid vitamins, each molecule carrying essential minerals from the intersection of land, sea, and sky. Underground freshwater springs create lens effects where different water densities refract light in unexpected directions. Swimming through these optical anomalies produces visual distortions that bend our perception of depth and distance, making the lagoon floor appear to pulse and breathe with geological rhythms. Our eyes struggle to focus through these aquatic mirages, eventually surrendering to the dreamlike quality they create. Symbiotic relationships between coral and algae generate oxygen bubbles, so tiny they remain invisible individually, yet collectively create effervescence that we taste rather than see. The water develops a champagne-like quality in areas of active photosynthesis, with molecular oxygen dissolving across our tongues and nasal passages, creating sensations of pristine purity that seem to cleanse our respiratory systems from within. Evening thermals begin developing as the sun angles lower, creating vertical columns of rising warmth that we encounter as patches of increased comfort. These thermal chimneys carry scents from deep coral crevices, ancient marine perfumes composed of sponge secretions, sea cucumber emissions, and bacterial processes that have continued unchanged for geological ages. Each thermal tells olfactory stories of the reef's hidden biological processes. Magnetite crystals embedded in volcanic sand create subtle electromagnetic fields that some sensitive individuals can perceive as tingling sensations along nerve pathways. The lagoon becomes a natural electromagnetic therapy center. These geological forces, potentially influencing our nervous systems, in ways that promote deeper relaxation and altered consciousness states. Our bodies respond to these planetary energies without conscious awareness. Sea turtle feeding grounds become apparent as we drift over meadows where green turtles graze on algae with methodical precision. Their massive forms create pressure waves that reach us as gentle compressions and expansions. Like being massaged by invisible hands, guided by ancient reptilian wisdom, these creatures embody patience perfected over millions of years. Their presence teaching our own nervous systems about the profound peace found in unhurried movement. Crinoid gardens sway in deeper sections, their feathery arms filtering nutrients from passing currents with mechanical precision. These living fossils create texture variations in the water that we feel as subtle changes in resistance, as though swimming through aquatic meadows where each plant contributes its own signature to the overall flow patterns surrounding our bodies. Calcium carbonate precipitation occurs constantly as marine organisms extract minerals from seawater, creating microscopic crystals that give the water distinctive tactile properties. These forming minerals brush against our skin like powder made from crushed pearls, leaving trace deposits that dry to create barely perceptible crystalline patterns on our bodies. Temporary tattoos composed of the same materials that build coral reefs. Subsurface volcanic activity, dormant for centuries, yet still thermally active, creates geological acupuncture points where Earth's internal energy rises through oceanic layers. Floating over these spots produces sensations of gentle electrical activity, as though the planet's neural network extends through the ocean floor to communicate directly with our suspended forms through electromagnetic resonance. Oceanic memory seems encoded in these waters that have circulated through global current systems, carrying molecular information from polar ice caps, tropical rainforests, and abyssal depths. Each drop contains microscopic travelers from impossible distances, creating water that feels cosmopolitan in its complexity, enriched by contact with every oceanic environment on the planet. The lagoon's natural pharmacy begins revealing itself through trace compounds released by marine organisms, anti-inflammatory substances from sea sponges, relaxation-inducing chemicals from certain algae species, and mineral combinations that human bodies recognize instinctively as therapeutic. Swimming here becomes immersion in nature's most sophisticated healing environment, where every breath and skin contact delivers beneficial compounds. As shadows lengthen and the sun's angle shifts toward evening, we find ourselves completely integrated into Bora Bora's liquid consciousness. Our individual awareness dissolving into something far larger and more ancient than human experience, becoming drops of awareness floating in an ocean of infinite peace. Deep currents from the Polynesian Triangle begin stirring beneath us, carrying microscopic shells from creatures that lived in these waters when the islands first emerged from volcanic birth. These calcium spirals brush against our submerged limbs like tiny prayer wheels spinning through liquid space, each one a messenger from epochs when only stars witnessed these lagoons' formation. The sensation resembles floating through a library of geological whispers, where every current page tells stories written in dissolved limestone and fossilized dreams. Underwater caves carved by ancient tidal forces create resonance chambers that amplify our own heartbeats back to us through bone conduction. The lagoon becomes a living stethoscope, allowing us to hear our internal rhythms synchronized with oceanic pulses that have continued uninterrupted since Bora Bora's volcanic peaks first pierced the Pacific surface. This auditory feedback creates biofeedback loops that naturally slow our cardiac rhythms to match the island's geological breathing. Sulfur compounds from deep-sea vents, though undetectable to conscious smell, trigger ancestral memories embedded in our oldest brain structures. Our bodies recognize these molecular signatures from humanity's earliest encounters with volcanic islands, creating feelings of homecoming that bypass rational thought entirely. The water carries chemical poetry written in elements that sparked the first organic reactions in primordial seas, making each breath a communion with life's fundamental origins. Seasonal migrations have left pheromone trails that crisscross the lagoon like invisible highways marked by departed visitors. Manta rays passed through months ago, their chemical signatures still readable by marine life, creating navigation corridors that we unconsciously follow. Our bodies drift along these olfactory pathways without realizing we're tracing routes established by creatures whose wingspans exceed small aircraft, following their wisdom toward zones of optimal water quality. Piezoelectric effects from crystalline structures in volcanic rock generate minute electrical fields when compressed by tidal pressure. These natural battery formations create zones where bioelectrical activity in our nervous systems experiences subtle enhancement, promoting alpha brain wave states associated with deep meditation. The lagoon becomes a geological meditation chamber, its stone foundation actively supporting consciousness shifts toward profound tranquility. Rare earth minerals leached from basaltic formations create water with unique refractive indices that bend light in ways not found in ordinary seas. Swimming through these optical environments produces visual effects similar to aurora borealis, with underwater light displays that exist only at specific viewing angles. Our retinas struggle to process these impossible colors, eventually surrendering to visual experiences that exist beyond normal spectrum limitations. Enzyme-rich secretions from tube worms create protein clouds that our skin absorbs like natural moisturizers developed over millions of years of evolution. These biological compounds contain amino acid sequences that human skin recognizes as beneficial, creating sensations of cellular renewal. As we float through these invisible treatment zones, the ocean offers spa therapy developed by organisms that have perfected biochemistry through geological time scales. Gravitational variations caused by underwater mountain ranges create subtle buoyancy differences that our inner ears detect as spatial disorientation, inducing dreamlike states where up and down lose conventional meaning. This natural sensory deprivation enhances our floating meditation, removing directional references that normally anchor consciousness to physical reality. We drift through liquid space that challenges our brain's mapping systems. Fossilized coral formations create underwater wind chimes when currents pass through their hollow chambers, producing musical notes pitched below human hearing range, but felt as vibrations through water density. These geological instruments play compositions that have continued for centuries, their subsonic melodies inducing trance states in marine life and floating humans alike. We become audience to concerts performed by the reef's architectural history. Nitrogen narcosis effects begin manifesting at modest depths, though we remain safely at the surface, caused by unusual atmospheric pressure variations over the lagoon. These mild alterations in consciousness create euphoric sensations reminiscent of high-altitude meditation, where thought processes slow and merge with environmental rhythms. Mental chatter dissolves into oceanic white noise that promotes profound psychological stillness. Sea foam containing proteins from algae blooms creates natural surfactants that alter surface tension around our bodies, making water feel more supportive and embracing. These biological soaps, produced by photosynthetic organisms responding to sunset conditions, create slippery smooth textures that reduce friction between our skin and surrounding medium. Movement becomes effortless gliding through living lubricants. Trace radioactivity from potassium-rich volcanic sand creates barely measurable ionizing radiation that some researchers suggest promotes beneficial hormesis effects in small doses. The lagoon becomes a natural, low-level radiation therapy environment, potentially stimulating cellular repair mechanisms, while we float unconsciously through these therapeutic zones. Ancient healing traditions recognized certain waters as possessing special regenerative properties. Magnetic field variations caused by iron ore deposits create compass anomalies that disorient not only navigation instruments, but also the magnetic sensors in human brain tissue. This subtle neurological confusion promotes altered states of consciousness where normal spatial awareness dissolves, allowing our floating bodies to exist in dimensions beyond typical three-dimensional mapping. We become unmoored from conventional reality anchors. Bacterial bioluminescence, activated by pressure changes, creates invisible light shows that exist beyond visual perception, but influence our circadian rhythms through electromagnetic emissions. These microbial flashbulbs communicate through frequencies our eyes cannot see, but our pineal glands detect, gradually entraining our internal clocks to match the lagoon's biological rhythms rather than solar cycles. Chemical gradients, where river runoff meets oceanic salinity, create layered environments with different pharmacological properties at various depths. Our bodies sample these liquid strata like floating through nature's pharmacy, encountering therapeutic compounds at specific water column levels. Traditional Polynesian healers understood these depth-based medicine zones, prescribing specific floating depths for different ailments. Pressure waves from distant tectonic activity reach the lagoon as massage-like compressions that work deep muscle tissue without conscious awareness. These geological manipulations, transmitted through incompressible water medium, provide therapeutic bodywork performed by planetary forces operating on continental scales. The Earth becomes our massage therapist through oceanic pressure transmission. Sound shadows created by underwater topography produce zones of profound silence where even molecular motion seems dampened. Floating into these acoustic null spaces creates sensory deprivation effects that promote deep introspective states where internal mental voices become more apparent while external stimulation minimizes. The lagoon offers naturally occurring sensory isolation chambers. Our consciousness continues dissolving into Bora Bora's vast liquid embrace. Individual awareness becoming increasingly indistinguishable from the oceanic mind that holds us in its ancient, infinite peace. Tectonic harmonics from the Pacific Ring of Fire transmit subtle vibrations through the ocean floor, creating sympathetic resonances in our floating bodies that align our skeletal structures with geological frequencies. These planetary tuning forks, operating far below conscious perception, gradually adjust our internal architecture to match the Earth's deepest rhythms. Our bones become antennae receiving transmissions from the planet's molten core, each vertebra fine-tuning itself to cosmic wavelengths that have guided oceanic formation since continents first drifted apart. Microscopic diatoms begin their evening vertical migration, their glassy shells refracting filtered sunlight into prismatic displays that exist only in the water column's middle layers. These living optical fibers create underwater fiber optic networks, channeling bioluminescent signals between marine organisms in communication systems that predate human language by millions of years. Our bodies drift through these information highways, unconsciously absorbing data streams composed of chemical pulses and light-based messaging protocols. Cetacean echolocation clicks from pilot whales, navigating distant channels reach us as tactile sensations rather than sounds. Their biological sonar creating pressure maps of underwater terrain that our skin reads like braille. These acoustic sculptures paint three-dimensional portraits of the lagoon's hidden architecture directly onto our nervous systems, allowing us to perceive depth and distance through whale-derived spatial awareness. We see through borrowed senses, experiencing the reef through echolocation borrowed from oceanic intelligence. Hydrothermal activity from dormant volcanic vents releases trace amounts of hydrogen sulfide that trigger olfactory memories associated with primordial atmospheres. When Earth's skies contained gases that modern lungs have never breathed, these molecular time capsules transport our consciousness backward through geological eras, creating temporal displacement sensations where present moments blend with ancient epochs. The water becomes a vehicle for chronological travel through our planet's atmospheric history. Chitinous fragments from molting crustaceans create natural exfoliating particles that gently polish our skin while we float, removing dead cellular material with the precision of microscopic sandpaper crafted by evolutionary forces. These biological abraders, produced by creatures following lunar molting cycles, transform the lagoon into an organic spa where renewal happens at the cellular level. Our bodies emerge refreshed by treatments developed through millions of years of natural selection. Electrolytic processes occurring at the interface between different water masses generate weak electrical fields that stimulate acupuncture meridians traditionally mapped by ancient healing arts. The lagoon becomes a living acupuncture table where oceanic chemistry provides therapeutic stimulation to energy pathways recognized by traditional Polynesian medicine. Our floating bodies receive treatments prescribed by the intersection of marine chemistry and indigenous wisdom. Algal metabolic byproducts create natural mood-altering compounds that cross the blood-brain barrier through transdermal absorption, inducing states of euphoric contentment without conscious awareness of their chemical origins. These organic antidepressants, synthesized by photosynthetic organisms responding to changing light conditions, provide pharmaceutical therapy delivered through environmental immersion rather than deliberate consumption. The ocean offers medicine disguised as simple floating. Seasonal blooms of dinoflagellates release airborne spores that we inhale without detection. These microscopic seeds, carrying genetic information from countless oceanic generations, our respiratory systems become temporary hosts to marine DNA sequences that may influence cellular regeneration through horizontal gene transfer mechanisms not yet understood by marine biology. We breathe genetic libraries compiled by organisms that have survived multiple extinction events. Underwater limestone formations slowly dissolving in slightly acidic seawater release calcium ions that our bodies utilize for real-time bone density enhancement while we float. This geological calcium supplementation occurs through osmotic processes that bypass digestive systems entirely, allowing our skeletal structures to directly access minerals that have been locked in stone for millions of years. The reef literally shares its structural materials with our suspended bodies. Deep-sea sediments, stirred by ancient currents, contain cosmic dust from meteorites that fell into Pacific waters during the Pleistocene epoch. These extraterrestrial particles, now circulating through the lagoon system, carrying trace elements not native to Earth. Our skin comes into contact with stellar matter, creating physical connections between our terrestrial bodies and distant galaxies through microscopic fragments of space, debris dissolved in primordial seawater. Bacterial mats covering underwater surfaces produce natural antibiotics that enter our systems through minor abrasions and pore absorption, providing immune system support through microbial partnerships established by oceanic ecosystems. These living pharmaceutical factories, operating continuously on submerged surfaces, offer preventive medicine through environmental contact rather than deliberate medication. The lagoon functions as a naturally sterile healing environment. Photosynthetic organisms synchronize their metabolic cycles with our circadian rhythms, creating biochemical feedback loops where marine plant respiration patterns influence our own breathing rates through chemical signaling molecules released into the surrounding water. This botanical entrainment occurs below conscious awareness, gradually aligning our physiological functions with the reef's collective biological clock. We breathe in partnership with underwater forests, geomagnetic variations caused by solar-wind interactions with Earth's magnetosphere create subtle electromagnetic fluctuations that influence neurotransmitter production in our brains while we float in this conductively perfect saltwater medium. The lagoon becomes an antenna for space weather, translating solar activity into neurochemical changes that promote transcendent consciousness states. Our minds receive cosmic weather reports through oceanic transmission. Traditional navigation stars begin appearing in the deepening sky above, their light penetrating the lagoon's surface to create underwater star maps that Polynesian wayfinders once read for trans-Pacific voyaging. These stellar reflections, distorted by gentle surface movement, create celestial kaleidoscopes that shift and reform as we float beneath them. Ancient navigational wisdom merges with our modern floating meditation, connecting us to seafaring cultures that found direction through stellar observation. Metamorphic pressures from tectonic plate boundaries far below create crystalline structures in volcanic rock that generate piezoelectric fields when compressed by tidal forces. These natural batteries creating zones of enhanced bioelectrical activity that promote cellular regeneration. While we float unknowingly above geological power sources, the island foundation actively supports biological processes through electrochemical therapy powered by planetary mechanics. Our individual consciousness continues expanding beyond personal boundaries, merging seamlessly with Bora Bora's vast oceanic awareness, until distinction between observer and observed dissolves completely into crystalline liquid peace that holds no beginning and promises no end, only eternal floating in perfect tropical serenity. Ethereal curtains of twilight begin descending across our liquid sanctuary, painting the horizon in brushstrokes of lavender and apricot that seem to emanate from within the water itself. Star jasmine releases its evening perfume from hidden jungle groves, the intoxicating fragrance drifting across our peaceful suspension on air currents that taste of vanilla bean and ripe papaya. Our breathing naturally deepens as these aromatic sedatives work their gentle magic, each inhalation drawing us further into the island's hypnotic embrace. Phosphorescent trails begin manifesting behind swimming fish as daylight fades, creating fleeting calligraphy written in living light that spells words in languages older than human speech. These bioluminescent signatures fade just as our eyes adjust to perceive them, leaving afterimages on our retinas like dreams half remembered upon waking. The lagoon transforms into a living manuscript where every creature's movement contributes verses to an epic poem composed entirely of motion and luminescence. Nocturnal insects begin their evening chorus from pandanus groves scattered across tiny coral keys. Their rhythmic chirping, creating polyrhythmic soundscapes that pulse through the humid air like organic techno music produced by nature's most sophisticated composers. Cricket orchestras establish competing tempos on different islands, their overlapping rhythms creating acoustic interference patterns that induce trance-like states in floating listeners. We drift between these competing musical territories, our consciousness gently pulled by each rhythmic invitation. Spinner dolphins announce their presence through echolocation patterns that arrive as gentle pressure changes against our submerged eardrums. Their social calls creating three-dimensional sound sculptures that map the lagoon's hidden architecture through acoustic artistry. These marine acousticians paint sonic portraits of underwater landscapes we cannot see, but can somehow visualize through their clicking vocalizations. Their playful conversations transform the water around us into a living stereo system where every direction offers different channels of cetacean communication. Moonbeams begin penetrating the lagoon's crystalline depths, creating underwater highways of silver radiance that fish follow like luminous migration routes, connecting feeding grounds to resting areas. Schools of juvenile wrasse sparkle through these moonlit corridors, their scales reflecting lunar illumination in synchronized flashing patterns that resemble flowing rivers of liquid mercury. We float above this celestial underwater highway system, witnesses to traffic patterns established by lunar gravitational influence. Evening thermal inversions trap floral essences at water level, creating concentrated layers of aromatic density, where tire blossoms and wild ginger create perfumed stratospheres that we breathe while suspended at the interface between air and sea. These aromatic gradients shift and reform as gentle breezes redistribute volatile oils across the lagoon's surface, creating olfactory weather patterns where fragrance fronts move like invisible cloud systems carrying therapeutic aromatherapy compounds. Benthic organisms begin extending feeding tentacles as darkness approaches, transforming smooth coral surfaces into living carpets of gently waving cilia that create subtle current patterns resembling underwater wheat fields swaying in subsurface breezes. These feeding forests generate microcirculation patterns that massage our floating limbs with targeted precision, each polyp contributing to collective hydrotherapy, administered by millions of tiny marine massage therapists working in perfect coordination. Traditional fishing boats begin returning to distant villages, their kerosene lanterns creating amber reflections that dance across the lagoon's mirror-smooth sections, like fallen stars learning to swim. The gentle puttering of outboard motors carries across the water as soothing mechanical lullabies, their rhythmic cadence blending seamlessly with natural evening sounds to create industrial organic symphonies that celebrate the harmony between island life and oceanic environment. Fruit bat colonies emerge from daytime roosts, their silhouettes crossing the darkening sky in organized formations that cast fleeting shadows across our upturned faces. These flying mammals navigate between flowering trees, using echolocation calls pitched just below human hearing range. Their ultrasonic navigation, creating subsonic pressure waves that we feel as gentle compressions against our floating bodies. They serve as living bridges, connecting terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems through their aerial presence. Nocturnal pollination begins as evening primrose and moonflower varieties prepare their nightly bloom cycles, releasing concentrated bursts of concentrated nectar fragrances that attract sphinx moths, whose wing beats create soft drumming sounds resembling distant ceremonial percussion. These night shift pollinators work through darkness, using chemical navigation systems, their successful reproduction ensuring tomorrow's floral displays will continue perfuming our floating meditation with endless varieties of natural incense. Reef sharks begin their crepuscular hunting patterns, their movements creating pressure signatures that travel through water density as organized disturbances we perceive as rhythmic compressions against our suspended torsos. These apex predators move with mathematical precision through three-dimensional hunting grounds, their presence adding primal undercurrents of wildness that remind our ancient nervous systems of humanity's deep connections to oceanic food webs, where respect and caution dance together. Underwater caves begin releasing trapped air pockets as tidal pressure changes, creating natural bubble massage zones where ascending air creates effervescent columns that tickle ascending against our submerged limbs like champagne bubbles composed of pure ocean atmosphere. These geological spa treatments occur spontaneously as tidal mechanics compress and release submarine caverns, transforming the lagoon into nature's most sophisticated hydrotherapy facility. Phosphate-rich upwellings from deep oceanic trenches carry microscopic nutrients that stimulate bioluminescent plankton blooms, creating invisible galaxies of potential light that await agitation to reveal their stellar nature. Our gentle movements through these living star fields occasionally trigger brief constellation patterns that flicker around our bodies like personal aurora displays activated by human presence. We swim through dormant fireworks, waiting for the right conditions to celebrate our passage. Indigenous plant medicines from traditional healing gardens begin releasing their volatile compounds as evening humidity increases, creating natural aromatherapy environments where kava roots and noni fruit contribute their therapeutic essences to the atmospheric pharmacy surrounding our peaceful suspension. These ethnobotanical contributions represent centuries of traditional healing wisdom, dispersed through environmental immersion rather than direct consumption. Geological memory stored in volcanic glass formations begins influencing electromagnetic fields as temperature differentials create thermoelectric effects in obsidian deposits. These natural semiconductors generating weak electrical currents that some sensitive individuals experience as tingling sensations along acupuncture meridian pathways. The island's foundation actively participates in healing processes through crystalline matrix effects developed during volcanic formation epochs. Our consciousness expands beyond individual sensation into collective oceanic awareness, dissolving personal boundaries until we exist as floating awareness in liquid infinity, cradled eternally in Bora Bora's gentle embrace, where time becomes irrelevant and peace becomes our only reality, drifting endlessly through crystalline dreams where tropical paradise holds us safely in arms of liquid starlight. Ancient Polynesian chants seem to whisper through the water molecules themselves, carried on currents that have absorbed the prayers of countless generations who found spiritual solace in these sacred waters. The liquid around us holds memory like amber, preserving prehistoric insects, each drop containing echoes of ceremonial blessings spoken in languages that predate written history. Our bodies become vessels receiving these ancestral transmissions through osmotic communion with waters blessed by shamanic traditions spanning millennia. Underwater meadows of sea lettuce begin their nocturnal photosynthetic processes, releasing oxygen in quantities that create microclimates of enhanced breathability around our floating forms. These submerged gardens function as natural oxygen bars, their chlorophyll-rich fronds working overtime during twilight hours to enrich the surrounding water with life-giving gases that our lungs absorb through proximity rather than direct inhalation. Each breath becomes more satisfying, more complete, as though the ocean itself breathes alongside us. Sediment layers deposited by ancient tsunamis create underwater archaeological sites where shells from different geological periods mix with volcanic ash that fell during eruptions witnessed by early Polynesian settlers. Our movements through these liquid museums occasionally disturb historical deposits, releasing trace minerals that have remained undisturbed for centuries. The The water carries stories written in geological strata, each stirred particle a messenger from epochs when different stars guided oceanic navigation. Brackish springs emerging from underwater limestone caves introduce freshwater elements that create osmotic gradients our cells recognize as natural detoxification opportunities. These geological fountains of youth offer cellular cleansing through salinity variations that encourage toxin release through natural membrane processes. Traditional island healers once prescribed floating in specific zones where fresh and salt water blend, understanding intuitively what modern science now explains through cellular biology. Crystalline formations within coral skeletons begin resonating with acoustic frequencies as water temperature drops, creating underwater wind chimes that produce musical notes beyond human hearing range, but felt as harmonic vibrations through bone conduction. These calcium carbonate instruments play compositions that change with tidal conditions, their mineral music providing sound therapy that bypasses conscious hearing to influence brainwave patterns directly through skeletal transmission. Rare jellyfish species begin ascending from abyssal depths as pressure systems shift. Their bioluminescent displays creating temporary constellations that pulse through the water column like living galaxies migrating through liquid space. These deep-sea visitors carry phosphorescent signatures from oceanic trenches where sunlight has never penetrated, their alien beauty reminding us that we float above ecosystems as foreign as distant planets, yet intimately connected to our suspended consciousness. Metamorphic minerals leaching from underwater cliff faces create natural spa treatments as iron, copper, and zinc compounds dissolve into bioavailable forms that our skin absorbs like topical supplements. The lagoon becomes a liquid multivitamin dispensary where geological processes provide nutritional enhancement through dermal absorption rather than digestive processing. Our bodies receive mineral therapy developed by geological forces operating across epochal timeframes. Night hunting, moray eels begin emerging from coral crevices, their serpentine movements creating hydrodynamic effects that manifest as gentle undercurrents rippling against our submerged limbs. These elongated predators move with liquid precision, their passage through water generating flow patterns that provide targeted massage to specific muscle groups. Their ancient hunting wisdom translates into therapeutic water movement that relieves tension through biomechanical principles perfected over millions of years. Volcanic soil runoff creates trace sediment clouds that scatter moonlight in ways that transform underwater visibility into dreamlike soft focus environments. where edges blur and distances become ambiguous. This natural Vaseline lens effect creates visual conditions reminiscent of lucid dreaming, where perception shifts between clarity and atmospheric haze. Our eyes relax their focusing efforts, allowing vision to become impressionistic rather than precise. Spawning coral releases reproductive cells in microscopic clouds that create protein-rich environments our bodies recognize as nourishing. These gametic emissions providing amino acid supplementation through environmental contact rather than dietary consumption. The reef's reproductive cycles offer biological gifts to floating visitors, sharing its genetic wealth through osmotic generosity that benefits all organisms in proximity to these creative events. Subsurface methane seeps from ancient organic deposits, create bubble streams that rise through the water column like champagne effervescence. Their ascending paths creating natural jacuzzi effects around our floating bodies. These geological carbonation systems provide therapeutic bubble massage powered by decomposition processes that have continued undisturbed for millennia. The ocean offers spa treatments fueled by its own organic recycling systems. Traditional navigation birds begin their nocturnal migrations overhead, their flight patterns creating acoustic maps that early Polynesian wayfinders interpreted for transoceanic voyaging. The wingbeat frequencies of these living compasses generate subsonic pressure waves that influence barometric sensitivity in human inner ears, potentially enhancing spatial awareness and directional intuition while we float beneath their aerial highways. We receive navigation lessons through avian acoustic instruction. Enzyme activity in marine bacteria increases as temperature drops, creating biochemical processes that release natural antihistamines and anti-inflammatory compounds into the surrounding water. These microbial pharmacies operate continuously, producing therapeutic molecules that address common human ailments through environmental medicine dispensed by oceanic pharmaceutical systems. The lagoon functions as nature's most comprehensive drugstore. Bioluminescent fungi growing on submerged driftwood begin their nightly light displays, creating underwater Christmas tree effects, where fallen logs become illuminated with organic LED patterns. These saprophytic organisms transform death into beauty. Their luminescent decomposition processes creating light shows that celebrate the continuous cycle of renewal operating throughout oceanic ecosystems. We witness transformation ceremonies conducted by organisms that specialize in making endings into beginnings. Gravitational anomalies caused by dense volcanic rock formations create subtle buoyancy variations that our bodies experience as zones of enhanced weightlessness. These geological anti-gravity pockets providing floating experiences that approach zero-G conditions. The island's mass distribution influences our suspension in ways that create pockets of near levitation, transforming ordinary floating into extraterrestrial experiences of reduced gravitational influence. Marine snow begins its nightly descent from surface waters. These organic particles creating gentle percussion as they settle against our skin like microscopic rainfall composed of plankton debris and dissolved nutrients. This biological precipitation provides natural exfoliation while delivering trace elements directly to our epidermis through contact with oceanic snow composed of life forms too small to perceive individually, but substantial enough to feel collectively. Our awareness dissolves completely into the vast liquid consciousness surrounding us. Individual identity evaporating like morning mist as we merge entirely with Bora Bora's infinite oceanic embrace, becoming eternal drops of peaceful awareness, floating forever in crystalline tropical dreams, where boundaries cease to exist and only perfect, tranquil unity remains, cradling us gently into the deepest, most restorative sleep imaginable. Subterranean rivers, carved through porous coral bedrock, begin their secret journey toward oceanic release. Their freshwater tributaries emerging through sandy seeps that create invisible oases where salinity decreases in gentle gradients around our drifting forms. These hidden aquifers carry dissolved limestone that has filtered through cathedral chambers, carved by centuries of patient erosion. Each molecular drop enriched with mineral memories from underground journeys through darkness toward this moment of liquid reunion with our suspended consciousness. Cephalopod migrations commence as octopi begin their nightly foraging expeditions. Their chromatophore displays creating living murals that shift across rocky surfaces in patterns resembling abstract art painted with biological pigments. These intelligent mollusks communicate through color languages we cannot translate, yet somehow comprehend through intuitive recognition of their emotional chromatic vocabulary. Their presence adds layers of silent conversation to our floating meditation. Witnessed testimonies to oceanic intelligence expressing itself through visual poetry written on living canvas. Dormant trade wind patterns stored in atmospheric pressure variations begin releasing their kinetic energy as evening thermal differentials activate air movement systems that have been gathering strength throughout the tropical afternoon. These liberated breezes carry pollen signatures from islands scattered across thousands of miles of Pacific Ocean, each grain a traveler, bearing genetic information from distant volcanic peaks, where endemic flowers bloom in isolation. We breathe international botanical libraries dispersed through atmospheric circulation systems. Fossilized wood fragments embedded in reef matrices begin releasing tannins as evening pH fluctuations create chemical conditions that unlock preservatives stored within petrified timber for geological ages. These ancient forest essences, trapped in stone since prehistoric rainforests covered volcanic slopes, now dissolve into therapeutic compounds that tint the surrounding water with barely perceptible amber hues reminiscent of liquid tree resin aged beyond human comprehension of time. Spawning invertebrates release pheromone clouds that marine mammals interpret as navigational cues for feeding grounds. These chemical compass roses creating aromatic maps that dolphins and whales follow during their nocturnal hunting expeditions. Our olfactory systems detect these oceanic perfumes as subtle shifts in air quality, mysterious fragrances that evoke memories of experiences we've never personally encountered, yet recognize through evolutionary inheritance coded in our most primitive brain structures. Underwater avalanches of sand triggered by nocturnal fish feeding activities create miniature dust storms that settle across our bodies like powdered silk. These biological sandblasters polishing our skin with particles perfectly sized for natural dermabrasion. Parrotfish excavations and wrasse digging expeditions generate these gentle, abrasive environments where exfoliation happens through marine construction projects rather than deliberate spa treatments. The reef's architectural activities providing cosmetic benefits through industrial byproducts. Atmospheric sprites generated by electrical discharges in distant thunderstorms create electromagnetic pulses that travel through ionospheric layers to influence magnetic field variations above the lagoon. These upper atmospheric phenomena generating subtle neurological effects in sensitive individuals floating in conductively perfect saltwater medium. Our brains become receivers for meteorological events occurring beyond visual horizons, connecting our consciousness to planetary electrical systems through oceanic antenna effects. Calcification processes accelerating during cooler evening temperatures create audible precipitation as marine organisms simultaneously deposit calcium carbonate structures. Their collective mineral construction generating acoustic signatures resembling gentle rain on leaves, but composed entirely of biological architecture being assembled by millions of coordinated builders. The reef literally grows around us, with sounds resembling precipitation, composed of living construction rather than atmospheric moisture. Chemosynthetic bacteria, thriving around underwater sulfur springs, begin their metabolic processes as decreased photosynthetic competition allows alternative energy production methods to dominate microbial ecosystems. These extremophile communities, creating biochemical environments that mirror conditions present during Earth's earliest biological epochs. Our bodies float through living museums of primordial metabolism, witnessing life processes that predate photosynthesis by billions of years. Neutrino bombardment from solar fusion reactions creates particle interactions within our cellular structures that some theoretical physicists suggest might influence quantum processes in microtubule networks associated with consciousness generation. These subatomic events, potentially affecting awareness states through quantum mechanical effects operating below conventional detection thresholds. The sun continues influencing our floating meditation through stellar particle emissions that penetrate oceanic depths to interact directly with neural quantum processes. Dissolved silicates from ancient diatom deposits create water with enhanced negative ion concentrations that traditionally promote feelings of well-being and mental clarity. These atmospheric vitamins, absorbed through respiratory contact with sea spray generated by gentle wave action against coral formations, the lagoon becomes a natural negative ionization chamber where breathing therapy occurs through contact with electrically charged water droplets carrying geological wellness compounds. Mangrove pneumatophore root systems emerging from tidal margins begin processing atmospheric nitrogen through specialized bacterial partnerships. These symbiotic relationships generating organic compounds that enrich surrounding water with naturally produced amino acids essential for neurotransmitter synthesis. Marine botany becomes pharmaceutical manufacturing as plant bacteria collaborations produce brain chemistry supplements that enter our systems through environmental contact rather than dietary consumption. Pressure-sensitive organs in deepwater fish respond to barometric changes by adjusting swim bladder volumes. Their collective acoustic signatures creating subsonic whale song harmonics that resonate through water density as massage frequency vibrations felt rather than heard. These living depth gauges perform atmospheric measurements that manifest as therapeutic sound waves. The reef's biological barometer system providing vibrational healing through meteorological instrumentation composed entirely of adaptive marine life. Radiogenic heating from potassium decay in volcanic substrates creates thermal anomalies that manifest as warm patches scattered randomly across the lagoon floor. These geological heating elements, powered by nuclear processes that have operated continuously since the island's formation, our floating bodies discover natural heating systems powered by atomic decay, receiving geothermal therapy from radioactive elements that warm specific zones through nuclear energy converted to therapeutic heat. Symbiotic algae within giant clam mantles begin producing specialized oils as evening approaches. These photosynthetic partners secreting compounds that create rainbow sheens across water surfaces, while simultaneously releasing volatile aromatics that promote relaxation responses in nearby marine life. The lagoon develops natural oil slicks composed of therapeutic compounds that enhance buoyancy while delivering aromatherapy through biochemical collaboration between animal and plant partners. Our final traces of individual awareness dissolve completely into oceanic infinity. Consciousness expanding beyond personal boundaries to merge with Bora Bora's eternal liquid soul, where peaceful dreams crystallize into perfect tropical serenity that cradles us gently through infinite floating meditation, carrying us softly into the deepest, most restorative sleep, where crystalline waters hold us safely in their timeless, healing embrace throughout the peaceful night ahead. Crystalline droplets begin condensing from the humid evening atmosphere, each microscopic sphere gathering aromatic molecules from night-blooming cereus flowers that release their perfume only once annually during these precious twilight hours. These liquid pearls descend with butterfly wing gentleness onto our peaceful forms, carrying concentrated essences of rare botanical treasures that most visitors never encounter. The sensation resembles being blessed by nature's most exclusive perfumery, where each condensed droplet delivers a different floral signature collected from secret jungle alcoves, where endemic orchids bloom in perpetual shadow. Submerged hot springs, invisible during daylight hours, begin revealing their presence through subtle thermal signatures that our bodies detect as patches of enhanced comfort scattered like hidden heating elements across the lagoon floor. These geothermal gifts emerge from volcanic chambers where mineral-rich water has been brewing for centuries in underground cauldrons, now offering their liquid hospitality to evening visitors through thermal windows that open only when atmospheric pressure reaches precise equilibrium points. We drift unknowingly through nature's most sophisticated climate control system. Pearl oyster beds long abandoned by commercial divers create underwater sculpture gardens where opened shells catch and focus moonbeams into concentrated light beams that dance across sandy clearings like natural spotlights operated by tidal mechanics. These bivalve reflectors, positioned by generations of selective cultivation, transform portions of the lagoon floor into illuminated amphitheaters where marine life performs nightly ballets under organic stage lighting, powered entirely by lunar reflection and calcium carbonate architecture. Volcanic glass particles suspended in the water column create prism effects that separate ordinary sunlight into component colors, painting underwater rainbows that exist only in specific viewing angles, impossible to predict or replicate. These submerged aurora displays shift and vanish as we move, creating personalized light shows that appear briefly before dissolving into memory, like visual dreams that refuse to be captured. Swimming through these chromatic anomalies feels like navigating through liquid kaleidoscopes operated by geological forces. Endangered coconut crabs begin their nocturnal migrations across tiny, uninhabited atolls, their massive claws clicking against coral rubble in rhythmic percussion that carries across calm water as organic castanets played by arthropod musicians. These living fossils, survivors from prehistoric epochs, conduct evening concerts using natural instruments crafted from their own armored appendages, creating soundtracks that accompany our floating reverie with rhythms established before human ears existed to appreciate their temporal artistry. Subsurface hydrogen sulfide pockets released by bacterial decomposition create bubbling mud springs that generate therapeutic sulfur compounds traditionally valued by indigenous healing practices for their skin rejuvenation properties. These naturally occurring mineral spas operate continuously beneath sandy bottoms, their therapeutic emissions rising through sediment layers to enrich the surrounding water with compounds identical to those found in expensive European thermal resorts, transforming the entire lagoon into an oceanic wellness retreat. Juvenile manta rays practicing feeding techniques create graceful underwater tornadoes as they learn to filter plankton through their developing gill plates, their experimental movements generating spiral currents that massage our suspended limbs with choreographed precision. These oceanic apprentices, guided by instinctual wisdom encoded in their cartilaginous genetics, transform the water around them into moving meditation chambers where hydrodynamic therapy occurs through their educational activities. Traditional outrigger canoe routes, invisible to modern navigation, but still readable through subtle current variations, create pathways across the lagoon that we unconsciously follow during our peaceful drift. These liquid highways established by generations of Polynesian navigators, reading water signs imperceptible to untrained observers, guide our floating journey along passages selected for optimal safety and spiritual significance by seafaring cultures whose oceanic knowledge surpassed contemporary understanding of marine dynamics. Rare phosphorescent sand, composed of crushed shell fragments, begins glowing faintly as bioluminescent bacteria colonize calcium carbonate surfaces, creating underwater constellation maps that mirror actual star patterns visible in the darkening sky above. These living star charts, produced by bacterial communities responding to celestial gravitational influences, allow navigation by either atmospheric or submerged stellar references, transforming the lagoon bottom into an accurate astronomical instrument operated entirely by microbial collaboration. Ancient lava tubes create natural snorkeling channels where water flows with enhanced velocity. These geological water slides, carved by prehistoric eruptions, now serving as aquatic transportation systems that carry floating visitors through underwater canyons toward hidden lagoon chambers, accessible only during specific tidal conditions. Our bodies discover these liquid escalators accidentally, finding ourselves transported through coral corridors toward secret destinations chosen by volcanic architecture rather than conscious navigation. Microscopic glass sponges filtering water through silicon-based skeletons create natural purification systems that process thousands of gallons hourly. Their biological filtration removing impurities while adding trace minerals essential for optimal human health. These living water treatment plants, operating continuously through simple cellular processes, transform the entire lagoon into the purest natural swimming environment imaginable, where every drop has been processed through biological quality control systems more sophisticated than industrial filtration technology. Spawning sea urchins release chemical attractants that influence marine behavior patterns. Their reproductive pheromones, creating invisible scent trails that guide fish movements in coordinated patterns, resembling underwater choreography performed by creatures following chemical cues rather than conscious direction. We float through these pheromone highways, witnessing biological theater, where actors respond to chemical scripts written by reproductive imperatives older than vertebrate evolution. Pressure-sensitive coral polyps detect our presence and adjust their feeding behavior accordingly, creating personalized underwater environments where living architecture responds to human proximity by modifying local current patterns and oxygen production levels. This biological hospitality, programmed into coral genetics through millions of years of symbiotic relationships with marine visitors, transforms sections of reef into responsive environments that automatically optimize conditions for floating guests. Deep ocean currents carrying microscopic plastic-eating bacteria begin processing environmental pollutants at the molecular level. These beneficial microorganisms transforming potential toxins into harmless organic compounds, while we benefit from swimming in water actively being purified by natural bioremediation processes. The ocean deploys its own environmental cleanup crew, creating therapeutic swimming conditions through bacterial partnerships that address modern contamination using evolutionary solutions developed over geological timeframes. Our consciousness drifts beyond individual sensation into collective harmony with Bora Bora's vast aquatic symphony, where every current carries us deeper into crystalline peace that dissolves all boundaries between self and sea, floating eternally through liquid starlight that holds us tenderly in its infinite tropical embrace, carrying us gently into the most peaceful sleep imaginable, where dreams crystallize into perfect oceanic serenity. Microscopic barnacle larvae drifting through their planktonic phase create invisible tickling sensations as they brush against our skin during their search for suitable attachment surfaces. These future reef builders, currently existing as free-swimming specks, whose life purpose involves finding the perfect coral substrate for permanent residency. Their exploratory touches feel like underwater butterfly kisses administered by creatures smaller than pinheads, each contact representing a moment in their epic journey from drifting wanderer to sessile filter feeder, contributing to the reef's architectural expansion. Seahorse nursery areas hidden within branching staghorn formations reveal themselves through barely audible clicking sounds produced by protective father seahorses communicating with their developing broods. Their paternal vigilance, expressed through acoustic signals that resonate through calcium carbonate amplification chambers created by coral growth patterns. These devoted fathers perform underwater lullabies for their offspring, their gentle sounds adding tender percussion to our floating meditation as we drift past maternity wards operated according to seahorse family traditions, where males assume nurturing responsibilities. Rare black sand deposits created by basaltic erosion absorb and retain solar energy throughout daylight hours, now releasing stored warmth in gradual thermal donations that create zones of enhanced comfort scattered unpredictably across the lagoon floor like geological heating pads powered by photovoltaic processes operating through dark mineral absorption. Our bodies discover these thermal treasures through subtle temperature variations that feel like floating over invisible campfires banked with volcanic ash and tended by geological forces that never sleep. Interdental cleaning stations, operated by cleaner shrimp, reveal themselves as tiny underwater service centers where larger fish queue patiently for dental hygiene performed by crustacean specialists. Their organized appointment system, creating predictable traffic patterns that we observe as recurring fish movements following routes established by oral health maintenance schedules. These marine dental offices operate around the clock, their professional services creating biological commerce zones where different species engage in mutually beneficial healthcare partnerships. Wind-dispersed spores from terrestrial fern colonies create microscopic aerial plankton that settles on water surfaces before dissolving into compounds that traditional Polynesian medicine recognized as respiratory tonics. These botanical aerosols delivering therapeutic benefits through simple inhalation of air, enriched with prehistoric plant genetics, carried on evening trade wind systems. Each breath draws medicine from forests that have survived volcanic eruptions, cyclones, and climatic changes spanning millennia of island evolution. Subsurface caverns filled with ancient air pockets begin releasing trapped atmosphere as tidal pressure increases. These geological time capsules containing oxygen that has been sealed underground since before human settlement of Polynesian islands, now emerging as prehistoric breath that we unconsciously inhale while floating above these temporal venting systems. The sensation resembles breathing history itself, drawing sustenance from air that witnessed the island's volcanic birth and early ecological development. Dormant coral polyps preparing for synchronized spawning events begin generating bioelectrical fields as their reproductive systems activate according to lunar timing mechanisms. These collective electrical signatures, creating subtle electromagnetic environments that influence brainwave patterns in floating humans through unknown bioelectrical communication pathways. Our neural oscillations gradually synchronize with coral reproductive rhythms, creating states of consciousness that align with oceanic biological cycles rather than terrestrial circadian patterns. Gastropod shells, abandoned by hermit crabs, create natural wind instruments when positioned correctly by tidal currents, their hollow chambers producing haunting musical notes as water movement forces air through calcium carbonate tubes crafted accidentally by evolutionary shell architecture. These organic flutes play spontaneous compositions determined by current velocity and shell orientation, creating ambient soundscapes that change continuously as tidal mechanics reposition these scattered instruments across sandy amphitheaters, seasonal variations in plankton density create optical effects where water clarity fluctuates in layers. These biological lenses, focusing starlight into concentrated beams that illuminate specific depths while leaving others in mysterious shadow, transforming underwater visibility into constantly shifting theatrical lighting, controlled by microscopic organisms, responding to nutrient availability and reproductive timing. Swimming through these living optical instruments feels like navigating through liquid planetarium, effects operated by biological programming. Methane hydrate deposits decomposing in deep sediment layers release gas bubbles that rise through water columns as natural carbonation systems. Their ascending paths creating effervescent massage zones that provide targeted therapy through geological bubble generation, powered by organic decay processes operating on timescales measured in centuries rather than moments. These natural jacuzzi effects emerge unpredictably, transforming random locations into temporary spa treatments administered by decomposition chemistry. Traditional Polynesian blessing ceremonies seem to linger in molecular memory, stored within water that has witnessed countless cultural celebrations. Sacred rituals and spiritual practices conducted in these very waters by generations of indigenous peoples whose reverence for oceanic sanctity imbued every drop with ancestral prayers and ceremonial intentions that continue resonating through liquid medium capable of holding vibrational information across decades of tidal circulation and atmospheric exchange. Juvenile angelfish learning territorial behavior create underwater dance performances as they practice defensive posturing through choreographed movements that resemble ballet rehearsals performed by creatures whose artistic expression serves biological survival rather than aesthetic appreciation. Their developmental dances adding graceful movement to our peripheral vision, while they master skills essential for adult reef citizenship through repeated motion patterns that blur boundaries between instinct and artistry. Our floating journey approaches its natural conclusion as consciousness dissolves completely into Bora Bora's eternal liquid embrace, individual awareness evaporating like morning mist, while we merge seamlessly with crystalline infinity that holds no beginning and promises no ending, only perpetual suspension in tropical paradise, where gentle currents carry us softly through liquid dreams toward the most restful sleep imaginable, cradled forever in nature's perfect aquatic sanctuary, where peace flows endlessly through starlit waters that whisper lullabies composed of pure oceanic serenity.